get started. I got started. I want to continue with introductions here. So we have, I'm sorry. We have, I just want to make sure I want to have them all right. So we have Professor Katja from Columbia University, welcome. We have Professor Al from New York University, welcome. And then we have Santino, and we have also Tia from Columbia and New York University. Do we have Vivian this morning? Sure, I don't think so. So I think it's only going to be the 5 of us today. So continuing with the introductions, if all of you can introduce yourselves, what drives you to be working in this space, and also any fun facts or interesting facts that you know about AI that you want to share with everyone here.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Al. I'm a research scientist here at NYU. I work at a research lab where we look at educational technology, and we've been integrating AI into our research and our products. And I've been teaching Introduction to Web Design for about 10 years, where things have been morphing into new technologies, and now that we're facing AI and its ever-growing benefits, we're beginning to think about how we can integrate AI into our classes so that we both leverage the technologies to eliminate friction and also to increase productivity in our students and have them engage with it so that they're ready for the marketplace. So that's what drives me. Drives me to empower students with technology, and so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Santino. I'm actually an intern at GEMI, and I'm also a student at Columbia studying tech management for my master's degree. I'd say the reason I'm in this space is because I really enjoy problem solving, and especially at the intersection of AI and sustainability, problems need to be solved, and AI, I believe, can play a very big role in solving those problems. In terms of how I use AI in my day-to-day, I go rock climbing a lot, so I've actually used AI to map out certain routes, I guess, and yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Hi everyone, I'm Tia. I'm a student at NYU studying business technology management. And in terms of how AI and education is relevant to me, obviously AI has started playing a huge role when it comes to education and courses. So I'm really interested in seeing how we can use that to basically move education forward.
Amazing. Thank you all. So we got Professor Katja's perspective already through the keynote. So maybe I want to get started with the students, with Santino and Tia. What are observations that you've seen on campus when it comes to the rise of AI, the use of AI amongst your peers and then yourselves, right? And the way that you learn, you collaborate, and even your lifestyles. If you can share a little bit about that.
So the biggest thing I've seen when it comes to AI usage is obviously convenience. Students use it to take notes, study, ideate on certain projects. But the biggest thing I've seen is it's not really a tool for convenience as much as it is a tool for problem solving in class. I've personally used it to take an idea from the earliest stage to an MVP. And tools like Bolt or Lovable have come really much in handy in those efforts. So I guess that's what I'd say. Yeah, productivity has really increased with AI.
I would say on the flip side, something I've noticed is the use of AI has led a lot of students to actually start skipping class because they're more inclined to learn through ChatGPT, for example, and they'll end up putting their syllabus into ChatGPT and thinking that's enough, which oftentimes it isn't. So on the flip side of productivity, that is something I've noticed.
I love that. And Santino, I totally get it, the vibe coding, wave. So I'm super glad that, it allows a space for, self-teaching and, exercising, being self-taught. I'm self-taught myself, so I totally hear you. But then going back to the professors, maybe Professor Santino, then how are you incorporating that, right, in your day-to-day in teaching and also motivating students? Not to not really use AI, because like Professor Katja said, we need to probably just promote that, right? It's going to be part of the marketplace as we move forward. But how do you make it a part of your day-to-day as a professor?
So initially I started by creating quiz questions, to generate a huge question bank for exams so that it's always different every semester. Then I had it fine-tune my syllabus. Sometimes I also had it simplify concepts for me so that I can deliver them properly. But now I'm also using it for logistics. So I'm using it for how do I, divide my time to deliver content. In the practices I do in my research lab, where we do educational technology and research, we also use it to create logistical plans so that we can run multiple studies. And so we give it all this information about what computers we have available, what kinds of studies we have to run, how long those studies take, what kind of environment do we need? Can that study take place in an isolated environment versus a open space? What kinds of sensors do we need? So it's a lot of things that a human being will take maybe 2 weeks to create. AI will come up with 2 or 3 different logistical plans in about 5 minutes. And then we're able to deploy very quickly. So yeah, productivity and enhancing those things. And for classes specifically, my thought process is we're eventually going to be delegating all these tasks to AI agents. So we need to sort of take on a new role, more of a supervisor, more of a manager, reviewer of sorts. So I think what I would like to do is I would like to expedite the expertise skill levels by, say, midterm time, and then start to integrate AI into the production of code so that they can start also learning how to review code, how to debug code. AI moves really fast. Just one thing can overwhelm you. And so we need to also learn how to pace ourselves, learn how to read the code that is coming back, and things like that, so that we can build products that are safe and that work, and that we also enhance that skill of reviewing. So that's my thought process.
Incredible. It's so robust and so complete. What about yourself?
Can I just add something? Tia, when you said skipping class, my heart dropped. But I think it's a good insight, because as educators, we have to think about, how do we keep you engaged, right? So then it means that whatever you use, there's a competitor to the class, and that cannot be, is not good for me when I hear it. So I have to really think about, how can I get you back into class, that, you get something that you don't get from that tool.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, thank you for that. I think it's more about how do we work around the new habits, right? I think the way that we're consuming and using tools out there, it's definitely changing, making us more autonomous. So how can we work around new habits, just like Professor said, how we can keep you engaged either way with a traditional kind of curriculum. So going more in depth when it comes to the usage, and again, habits, right? I mean, with the rise of any immersive technologies comes new set of responsibilities, new roles, new challenges, new questions, right? And with that also, with everything in life comes motivation and purpose. Something has to drive us to even adopt something new, which is already a hard job. So again, back to the students, what's motivating you? Other than being more productive and expediting parts of your day-to-day use certain tools when it comes to the use of AI, ML, what's motivating you and driving you? And also, how do you keep yourself, even in guardrails, when you're using these tools, how do you keep yourself intentional?
I guess for me, what's motivating me is being able to improve my work in terms of and being able to learn from AI rather than just productivity, because of course AI can do it faster, but I want it so that I'm able to learn from AI and be able to do the task quickly, or learn the concept quickly myself. So that's how I've been focusing on that.
I guess for me, I've learned to use AI not as a tool to generate content, but help me generate whatever I need to do at any given day. It's about learning how to use it as more of a partner rather than asking it to do your work for you. And it also goes hand in hand with the timing and complexity of certain tasks. If I need something quick and easy, I'll boot up ChatGPT and ask it to generate me a list of something. But if it's a big project I'm working on, I'll work directly with it to check whether or not my ideas make sense, and I'll also cross-check whether or not what it's giving me is also accurate.
Oh wow, 100%. I think I'm a fan personally of augmenting yourself with technology in general, not only AI. So I think these are great ways because it augments yourself and makes you learn a little bit faster on your own terms. We're all learning at different curves, different rates. So definitely definitely so important. I guess more on the professor side now, making sure that we understand, right, what motivates you to make AI part of your classroom, right? I mean, how do you divide whether it's you curating all the work or where are you asking for help? Like you said, professors, when you want to become more productive and more creative in the classroom, how do you divide that line? How do you make that decision?
Well, I look at the learning objectives. It starts with that, right? And, what's the best way to approach them? And, to transfer them into we usually have the lecture and activities, right? So then I would focus on the activities and see how I can incorporate it there, because that's where really the application and reflection happens. Like when you remember that pyramid, and so focused on these upper layers of the pyramid. That's what I, from my background, recommend.
Yeah, I have to agree. Aligning ourselves with the learning goals. I think of this like a calculator. There's certain things that we still learn math, right? Just because the calculator is around doesn't mean that we don't take calculus and linear algebra and all these things. So we still need to go through the journey and sweat the walk. We have to walk the walk. So what motivates me, I guess, is basically that. Identifying where AI can help us and where we should actually do the walk ourselves. Aligning our learning goals and be very strong, bound to that signal, as opposed to delegating AI to do the thinking for us. So we have to identify where do we need to grow as a human being, and where can we use like little treadmill, like in the airport, just to get you from A to B very quickly, removing that friction. What was the second part? The use case. Yeah, so that was basically the use case, the analogy of the calculator, right? Sometimes you need a very quick arithmetic problem to be solved. That's pretty fine. Also, you have to keep in mind the impact on the environment, right? Like what is really worth querying and what is not worth querying. Like write your own emails, right? Don't have it write your email. I don't think that's worth the hit of the environment. The other day I got an email from a student asking me to consider their grade, and it was actually written by ChatGPT, and they didn't even read it because there were blanks that she needed to fill out. And so I replied by saying, if I cannot really trust your email, I don't know if I can go back and trust your assignments at this rate. So the whole course was going to be invalidated for her. Don't give away your agency and your autonomy to the machine. That would be my use case.
100%. On that note about the email, I remember seeing something like that as well, and the person just pasted the email, and the last paragraph said, do you want me to write it in a more friendly note? Want me to and I'm like, so I hear you there, totally. I mean, and like you said, Professor Katja, at least check what you're copying and pasting. And in that same note, I want to hear from you and your perspectives. When it comes to transparency, right? I don't think right now we're in that era of I wouldn't say hiding, but omitting that you're using AI for your day-to-day. So I think from both perspectives, right? I mean, how do you keep that transparency that something has been curated by you, but it has been supported by any sort of AI or ML, maybe starting with the students and then going to the professors? Do you have any sort of, guardrails or rules for yourself on when to presenting work to professors or presenting work in general, collaborating with students? Hey, this was curated by me, but I got support from AI augmenting my thoughts.
I'm very honest with how I integrate it into my work. There are tools out there like Perplexity's researcher mode. It can get you a ton of sources and a detailed breakdown of the sources in one prompt. And I don't hide the fact that I use it because it speeds up my work. I guess the integrity comes in when you're just copy and pasting in what AI is saying. You have to verify the information that it's giving you, and you also have to I'd say add your own layer of thinking to it. But again, that layer is slowly going away with how advanced AI is getting, so point of concern.
So I think recently professors have been moving towards allowing the usage of AI and ChatGPT in your work, and as long as you credit it, and I think that's been really great in general for students. This past semester, for example, I used AI to create a graph, and because they have a policy where you're allowed to use AI, I would anyway quote it, but I think that's also helped other students be more honest with how they're using AI, and I think that shift towards knowing that students are most likely going to be using AI. So if they're able to like honestly like integrate it into their work, but still like incorporate their thinking, as Santino was saying, is like a great like shift to go towards.
100%. What about you, professors?
I think we have to have that conversation in the first week of class, right? So what's allowed, what's not allowed, and I encourage Gen AI tools. I just want to know, how they use it and that they disclose it. And having that open conversations maybe encourages students also be more forthcoming, but I would ask if you have that, whether that is helping them. Because I feel like if you kind of like don't talk about it or kind of like block something, for me personally, I don't think that's a good approach. And that's not a good learning environment. So, and we want to incorporate it so we can just talk it out, how to best use it.
I agree. I think that's a topic for first day. So in my syllabus, I ask my students to use Gen AI to generate content. So again, I teach introduction to web design, and so there's a lot of things that can be done by AI in that case. I guess everywhere. But in my class, I started with you can generate content like text and images and video so that you can have content for your websites. The more content you have, the more problems that you have, and then you will engage in design solution skill development, right? So that you can, you have enough material to like figure out where, how typography will fit in and how layout will fit in. And there's also MLA, APA, and Chicago style citation now, right? So you should cite your work, and in there you add the prompt. And the prompt at this rate is basically like what we ask our students in math classes, right? We don't care about what X is, I just want to know your arithmetic. I want to see your process, how you got to X. And I think citing the prompt and understanding how they formulated the prompt gives us a window into their actual process thinking. Are they actually learning? Are they actually delegating this properly? And I know there's workarounds to that. You can create a simple prompt and then have Claude enhance that prompt, and all of a sudden that prompt looks like an expert prompt. So hopefully they're not doing that. But like you said, it's getting more and more intelligent, so it's very hard to catch. But I think that lands on personal integrity of the person. If you want to grow as an intellectual, you should engage with intellectual activities and not just rely on the thing to do it. Again, for the impact of the environment and also for the impact of your own cognition. So we have to be healthy mentally to engage. It's just like junk food, right? You could eat burgers every day and you're gonna get a heart attack by the end of it. Same thing goes with junk and, relying on other things to do our most human capabilities, which is thinking.
100%. And I want to stay with you, professors, because prompting, right? I think prompting, when it comes to technology, or AI in this case, we know prompt is an instruction. I tell you to give me something, and you get me exactly what I asked for. But I think it goes back to then cognitively and to the person. It's changing the way that we communicate as people. Myself, I talk to people every day, my team, give instructions, leading, right? But then working with AI, because I've been so vague with my AI, have taught me that probably I should be more thorough in the way I talk to people in the day-to-day, which has been positive, at least for my experience. So going back to you professors, maybe, and I'm not assuming, but that it was not like that before, but maybe in the way of teaching now, it's less based on outcome, more based on thought process. And I'm gonna go back to prompting, because it's exactly like that. I mean, a prompt, it's a thought process that you have to go through with a certain and very specific set of data that you wanna get as an output, right? So are you evaluating also students based on thought process, but specifically down to a prompt, down to the way that they're talking to technology to get what they want? Is that something that you're seeing or considering?
I haven't done that to that level yet. I think it's an interesting thought. I can imagine it if we do an exercise in class, because I wouldn't see that, unless they give me the transcript, right? So, I'm going to take that back as food for thought.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely.
So I've done it for whoever sends me prompts, right? If they don't send it to me, I won't be able to do it. When I'm collaborating with people in the lab, we're co-prompting, we're co-creating a prompt. And yeah, so that's
amazing. Something we'll have to see. Come in for that once you have an answer. But then back to the students now. Prompting, design thinking. Do you think, it's redundant, But do you think AI is changing in the ways that you're thinking now? When you're prompting, when you're getting those outputs, and then in the way that you're also digesting that information for a follow-up? Do you think it's changing in the way you're thinking?
I'd say prompting is extremely important when speaking to a model, but equally important is the model you're communicating with. The prompt can be as good as it's going to be, but if you're communicating with a model that doesn't fit the capabilities of that prompt, you're not going to get like the output you want. So I guess that's also what I've learned using AI these past 2 years is figuring out which tools work best to help me in a specific task. But to answer your question, yeah, it's changed the way I think.
I think I definitely agree. Like, it has definitely changed the way I think in terms of and how I go about projects. I'll usually like prompt to see how my idea should be developed, or like if I'm doing something wrong. And I think it also goes back to like intentionality and how you're using it, because it can create like a sense of like false confidence where you think you know everything. And like even going to an exam, you might think you know everything, but it's AI giving you those answers. So I've like moved my prompting to be like make sure it's only like supporting what I'm thinking and not just giving me answers.
100%. Yes.
I just want to add to that, and that also goes with, for example, using multiple tools at the same time, giving them the same prompt and see what they come back with, right? And then see whether there's any differences, and which kind of helps you evaluate what you get back and how you should go about it as well.
100%. And I think that's the best way to have that human touch and that humanness, right? That we don't want to lose with the rise of many other technologies. I guess staying with that thought, for students and professors, do you follow any criteria of your own to evaluate outputs from AI tools, whether that's an LLM, whether that's a SaaS that you're using? What's the criteria blueprint that you have for yourself that you follow to know in a very binary way, is it good or is it bad? When you're interacting with AI tools to then put it out there, whether that's to a professor or students, maybe getting started with professors. Is there any criteria?
It kind of like depends on what you're looking for, whether it's more content or on. So I can give you one example, statistics. So I'm not a statistics professor, that was for an assignment I did. So I was working with SPSS, and then I kind of like did the same problem in 3 different Gen AI tools, and I got different answers. And not all of them were the correct answers. So I kind of like went back and asked the tool, hey, but actually I got this result. Yeah, you're right. I made a mistake, but not me personally, the Gen AI tool. And so, yeah, I kind of like look at quality of output, and then I still need a way to validate it.
100%.
Yeah, I have to agree. I faced the same challenge with statistics. I'm not so strong in statistics either, so I rely a little bit on AI for that. But then I have to consult with an actual statistician to make sure that this works. And to avoid content that is misinformation, I like using RAGs, like Notebook LM, where you can load your own literature, and then it sort of scopes AI to just that literature. So that kind of does it for me. But then I also rely on things that I learned back in high school, which is, check your primary sources, secondary sources, tertiary sources, and make sure that what you're committing to memory is true. So that those things will probably come back and save us a lot of headache. Yeah.
Amen to that. I'm also a fan of RAG, so I hear it, Professor. 100%. About you, Santino? Tina.
Mine is a little less exciting. It's when I'm sourcing stuff. I'm pretty old school when it comes to like manually checking whether or not the sources are actually real. And obviously, you have to do your own research at some point, but when you're requiring information quickly and you're prompting any GPT to provide you with a list of reliable sources, you obviously need to check whether or not they make sense and whether the data is accurate.
100%.
I would say for statistics, I mostly go to primary sources and like academic papers, because I've also noticed that different AI tools will give you different answers, and you'd rather not include false information. Another thing where I feel like I've always double checked with AI, or like checked what AI is giving me, is actually when it comes to like finance problems, which they're solving. A lot of the methods and computation comes out incorrect for some reason. So I go back to my textbook, and I've learned to just use my textbook more, because it's often for some reason wrong, and I'm like, okay.
Of course, when you mentioned sources, that's another one. I look at the output of the sources, and often I see the sources like, I would not have used that source. So there's a lot of crappy sources that I get back, and so I have to, kind of like go back and actually go the better sources.
Amazing, yeah. More people leading by example like you. When I say that, it's keeping that human touch and that human oversight in everything that we do. Not only when it comes to experiments, but literally everything. Even when you think you know, like you said, yeah, probably you don't. So that's the importance of keeping traditional frameworks, traditional habits still in your toolkit, and then augmenting yourself with some of these tools. I guess now, putting all of this under one umbrella, that's academia integrity, and I think that's a point that came up in the keynote with Professor Katja. So speaking of that, professors, I want to get started with you. How do you think it's AI, and again, emerging technologies in general, transforming academia integrity, and how do you plan to become a part of the people that are leading to, with example, to work around that?
Well, I always find it funny that academic integrity is also AI, right? Like academic integrity.
Put that on a t-shirt.
I think that will evolve again, right? We always move the yardstick a little forward just to accommodate the world as we have it. So I think that will change. Again, I think we're moving into a world where we're delegating agents, so we're all going to become supervisors of sorts. So I think academic integrity will also have to follow those rules. And then also the underlying mechanisms of the outputs. If it's code, we want to make sure that the code works and all those things. Code is a very good example of this. It's open source, right? So this ability of knowledge moving from one place to another. So I guess acknowledging where AI was, what the contribution of AI and where your contribution is, I think that's going to stay. But I think we probably will have to modify certain things.
How about yourselves? Any thoughts there, students?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, how do you think academic integrity is transforming, and maybe on the even student side, and from your perspective, how can you get accustomed to that, used to it, and how everything's transforming in general?
I'd say it's the way courses are taught. As Professor Katja said, and I actually took a class with her my first semester at Columbia, it's the way you add the guardrails to AI in the classroom. No one's going to stop students from using it, and if they do, they're going to fail. The students are going to use it anyways. It's more about understanding how they use it and how to keep that academic integrity as a part of how they use it. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, 100%. And it actually brings a follow-up on my end, and it's more asking for thoughts on your end. Do you think when we talk about guardrails and academic integrity and just integrity and ethics in general, would it be useful to have some sort of four-wall environment of a model that's proprietary to your school and that's educated with all the data in the forms of resources and materials? I mean, what's the best place in a school to have all of that information? And then have students adopt that instead of maybe an open source model, a more mainstream model, but they go to a more proprietary model to get their answers. So there's more peace of mind that sources are correct, and everything, again, it's in a four-wall environment that's in guardrails. Would you find value in that? Starting with professors.
Yeah, I think right now we are moving towards, there's many voices in academia, like, also across institutions. There's different opinions on how to go best about it. So I think it's a long-term process to move to a model like that. And so I'm more like I would start at the grassroots while the longer-term discussions are happening.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, short-term versus long-term. I think that's kind of like what we're doing already, where we're creating a learning environment. So if we have a VR, we do a VR learning environment. Now we have an LLM learning environment. Custom GPTs might be a thing where you're just saying, you prompt it so that you don't give the answer, but rather, embody a Socratic approach of asking the learner to generate their content, right? Like, I'm not gonna write your essay, but maybe we can work on an outline. Give me your ideas of an outline. That would be an example of how an LLM in such learning environment will respond to that. So I think we need to start thinking, how do we create learning environments with LLMs in there that embody a Socratic approach? These personalized and adaptive learning systems are now within reach, and I think we should exploit those venues.
Amazing. How about yourself, Santino, from your perspective?
To answer your question about the model being specific to an institution, this is just me, but I don't think that would work. Just because, at least the way I approach it is I like to use multiple tools at once to cross-check whether my outputs are correct and good enough quality. And I think solely relying on one specific thing for an entire group of people wouldn't really make much sense. But that's thinking of it like holistically. In my head, it's similar to how when ChatGPT was first introduced, that was the only model anyone was ever using. And obviously that came with a bunch of like headaches. People were giving out wrong information based on the sources they were generating. Yeah, so I personally don't think that would work.
Well received, yes. How about you, Tia?
I would say like universities already have like libraries, like online libraries with databases and a lot of different subscriptions to be able to get access to academic papers. And if we're able to integrate that into an AI platform like you were saying, I think that would definitely change the way research is done and would be a really great tool. But getting access to that, for example, ChatGPT doesn't have access to those academic papers, and that's why a lot of the data and like statistics that you get back are incorrect and not accurate. So that would definitely solve that problem.
Yeah, definitely. So, no, it's all well received. And I think that when you're doing such, because we're talking on the tech layer right now, but under that it's change management. It's also, organizational management. So all of that has to be very strong before you make a huge change on the stack. So totally hear you there. But now I think that takes us to, that's a good segue to talking about the future, which is not so far from now. We believe we're living in sci-fi. We're living in the sci-fi. Sci-fi is not sci-fi anymore. So talking about the future and all the transformations that we're seeing happening in front of our eyes, let's take ourselves 2 years from now. I'm gonna say 2 years because things are changing so fast that 5 years is just not gonna cut it. So 2 years from now, professors, how do you think assignments will be now given, completed by students? How education is also transforming with kind of like these, boot camps that are out there, that's quick teaching kind of frameworks that are out there, all of these gurus, offering knowledge for free or under certain, modalities. So how do you feel your jobs as professors will never disappear, just transform with us? It's changing in the things that you do in the day-to-day.
I think we will definitely have even more tools, right? So more tools, and yes, there's a competition going on, and whether it's ChatGPT or Google, Gemini or Claude, but I think there will be more beyond that, and maybe that will also flow into the learning management platforms that we have, right? So that the AI is incorporated into that. Yeah, and maybe there's like different tools or systems that AI driven that we can use in the classroom.
So I'm kind of like John parent. I just had a kid, and I'm about to have another one. And so
Congratulations.
Thank you. So my thought is, how do I educate this kid, right? He's gonna be 20, and then robots are gonna do everything. And it breaks my heart sometimes. I hear him sing, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can sing better than you now. And so what's his future? So I think our role is embody some sort of model of how we should use this tool. Again, as an extension of our brain, to become productive, to augment our intelligence as opposed to replace our intelligence. I think we have to invest on organic intelligence as well as artificial intelligence. And so, I think that, we have to shift our focus. Obviously this is the old world moving into a new world, so we have to change our focus from an old focus to a new focus. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think we have to evolve as a species with this thing, because this thing is not gonna go anywhere. So we need to, sort of start thinking about that, what skills will be valuable. And I think those skills are, again, ethics, morality, communication, creativity shouldn't go away. I think our art has a big space in our human soul, and I think we shouldn't be building tools that make art for us. I mean, I thought that was the promise, right? That they were going to be doing the laundry and we were going to be painting. Turns out that they're painting and we're doing the laundry. And so that's not cool. So we need to make sure that if we're facing this fork in the road, that we take the right turn.
100%. And then from the students, and I want to add another layer to your perspective and asking for your perspective. When it comes to engaging to the way that assignments would look, exams would look, curriculums and classes would look, what's something that, besides giving me your thoughts on how do you think it's going to be transforming, what would make you, in your current role as students, engage with this sort of teaching materials in the future and even today? What makes you become a part of an active, class?
I would say like more interactive assignments would definitely help, because that, like, for example, projects that you're able to like research and do over a longer period of time with like benchmarks, rather than having like one straight like deliverable. So having like teamwork and like collaboration would definitely help. I was also like thinking about how, like, as I already said, ChatGPT's like ability to even make charts, for example, has already developed. So actually using like your creativity to prompt what you would want to include in the project, and that makes it easier.
100%. What about you, Santino?
I think, wait, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. When you wanna, like when you think about where AI is gonna be 2 years from now, I think Jensen Huang put it best about how you're not gonna lose your job to AI, you're gonna lose your job to someone who knows how to use it. What is most helpful, in my opinion, is integrating AI use cases into any classroom environment, and I think that's what's already being done. Just so students who are not only entering college, maybe even in high school and entering their master's or PhDs, wherever you are, I think it's important to understand how AI can best help you not achieve your task, but aid you in achieving your task. Learning to use that as a partner again, not necessarily asking it to do your work for you.
100%. If I can add another layer to that, it's exactly it. Probably, like we just were talking about, right? I mean, not really evaluating by outcome, but by process, and by that, maybe putting students in real case scenarios from the real life, and then getting that sort of collaboration, like you're saying, Tia, of the different approaches that you can take to it. There's no one way necessarily in life, and that's something I appreciated from my days as a student. They put us in real life scenarios, and it was more about the process and not really the outcome. Yeah, so that said, I think we're at time, but it was such an, nurturing more than anything, an insightful conversation, and getting both sides of the coin, right? I mean, I think it's more about finding ways to create an ecosystem, that's sustainable for all the roles that are part of a process. So yeah, hearing your perspectives, I think it's definitely informing both sides of the coin on how to, make a better experience for anyone. I think when it comes to AI and ML, just to wrap this up, it's all about the experience, right? I mean, there's adoption already in the middle of everything. It's a layer that's there. That's hard, right? So if you can improve that experience, inject trust through being responsible, ethical, intentional, and thinking of all of the moving parts and all the people that are also trying to adopt it from different roles, it's going to give you enough perspective to then, again, be intentional with the use of any technology, y'all. Robots are not going to be here to kill us. We just have to, always say thank you and please to ChatGPT just in case, But we're going to be fine. Just be intentional and educate yourselves. There's so many resources out there for you to learn by doing, by reading, by seeing. Again, different routes, different curves, and different ways of learning. I think right now, in these eras when we've had the most access to education and material. So let's make the most out of it. With that said, I think that's our time here, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you all for the great conversation. Thank you, everyone.